Recently, a group of British patriots had enough and confronted pro-Palestinians that were blocking roads. A British lady stepped out of her car and confronted them. Have a watch. Also, still in the same light of blocking roads, these other brave British men confronted another group of pro-Palestinians, asking them to take off their masks and stop causing disruption on UK streets. Have a watch. Guys, the funniest thing is that when they blocked these roads, some police officers were there with a police van, and they decided to stay in their van and watch them block the roads. Can you imagine that? That's why some patriots said enough is enough, stepped out of their car and confronted these pro-Palestinians causing disruption on UK streets. This is almost like a normal day pattern now in Britain, and if not handled worse, things will still happen.
Look at this. Palestine here in Bradford, Manchester Road. You've got police here guarding these. Look, you've got these fucking clowns. And you've got two police officers here watching this, and they can't even watch someone who needs protection. This is absolutely shocking. You've got one over there, you've got one here, two police here watching these idiots.
Well, we will tell you everything in this video, but make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell for upcoming updates. In recent months, a palpable tension has gripped the streets of Britain. Week after week, pro-Palestinian demonstrations have become a regular feature of urban life. However, a more disrupted tactic has emerged: the complete shutdown of major roads and bridges, bringing cities to a standstill. This has sparked a fierce debate about the right to protest versus the right of citizens to go about their daily lives. But for some, the time for debate is over. Frustration has boiled over into direct confrontation. Today, we look at the moments when ordinary British people, seeing their roads blocked and their patience exhausted, decided they had had enough. The flashpoint for many has been the feeling of being held hostage in their own cities. One such incident, which quickly went viral, involved a woman in her car reaching her breaking point. While numerous videos have circulated online showing heated exchanges, one particular incident in Edinburgh underscores the potential for these situations to escalate. During a pro-Palestinian demonstration in the city, a 70-year-old woman was arrested and charged with a driving offence after her car collided with a small number of protesters. While the specific details of the confrontation leading up to the collision remain a matter for the courts, the incident was one of the first to be captured and widely shared, crystallizing the growing anger of those being impeded by the roadblocks. This event was not an isolated one. Across the country, similar scenes of frustration have played out. In London, drivers have been seen getting out of their vehicles, pleading with or angrily demanding that protesters from groups like Youth Demand and Palestine Action clear the way. These protesters say they are blocking roads to demand an end to what they call a genocide in Gaza, and to pressure the UK government to implement a full arms and trade embargo on Israel. They chant, "Shut it down for Palestine," and "Stop bombing Gaza," arguing that the disruption is a necessary price to pay to draw attention to a humanitarian catastrophe. But for those stuck in the gridlock, parents trying to get children to school, employees needing to get to work, or emergency services potentially being delayed, that argument wears thin. Another dimension to these confrontations has been the issue of mass protesters. These other brave British men confronted another group of pro-Palestinians, asking them to take off their masks and stop causing disruption on UK streets. While a single, specific video matching that exact description remains elusive in mainstream reporting, The sentiment it captures is very real. There has been a significant and growing counter-protest movement. Groups, sometimes described as patriots or identified by news outlets as far-right, have organised to oppose the pro-Palestinian marches. In September 2024, for instance, a pro-Palestine march in London was briefly halted when two counter-protesters blocked its path, one holding a sign that read, "Hamas is terrorist." The two men were detained by police after a considerable struggle, as some of the marchers shouted angrily at them. The issue of masks has become a particular point of contention. The government has proposed new additions to the criminal justice bill that would give police the power to arrest individuals who cover their faces to avoid prosecution. Proponents of this measure argue that masks are used to conceal identity while inciting violence and causing criminal damage. They point to a perceived lack of fairness, where some protesters seem to get away with actions that others would be arrested for. Critics, however, view these proposals as an authoritarian attack on the fundamental right to protest. This brings us to the most complex and criticised element of this story, the role of the police. This image of police seemingly standing by has become a lightning rod for public anger. Many have asked why officers don't immediately intervene to clear the roads. The reality of protest policing, however, is multifaceted and fraught with legal and tactical considerations. A report from Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary acknowledged that the police do not always strike the right balance, and that the scales can tip too readily in favour of protesters. This is often because the level of disruption is not accurately assessed in the initial stages. Police forces operate under a complex legal framework, including the Public Order Acts of 1986 and 2023 and the Human Rights Act, which protects the right to peaceful assembly. The law requires them to show a degree of tolerance for disruption caused by protests. Often, what appears to be inaction is a deliberate strategy. Police may be gathering evidence for future arrests, assessing the situation to determine the safest way to intervene, or containing the protest to prevent it from spreading and causing even greater disruption. However, this approach has led to immense strain on police resources. A Home Affairs Committee report from February 2024 highlighted that the size and frequency of protests over the conflict in Gaza have placed severe pressures on police forces, with thousands of officer rest days being cancelled. The police response has certainly not been one of universal inaction. In fact, the numbers tell a different story. In response to disruptive tactics, which have included activists gluing themselves to roads, hundreds of arrests have been made. The scenes of British patriots, as they are called, confronting protesters on the streets are more than just isolated incidents of road rage. They are the visible manifestation of a deeper societal friction. As the protests and the roadblocks continue, and as the legal powers of the police are both expanded and challenged, the question remains, where is the line between the right to protest and the right to public order? And what happens when the public feels that line has been crossed, and the authorities are no longer in control? The streets of the UK have become the stage for this tense and unfolding drama. Thank you for joining us on Crossroads UK. We'll continue to follow this developing story.